Hello, and welcome to this Audacity tutorial. I'm your host, marcusunlimited. Today we're going to be learning how to extract the audio from an MP4 video file so that you can bring it into Audacity, dress it up, clean it up, repair it, fix it, make it better, and then return it back to the original video by muting the original locked video track in a basic video editor. We're going to be using a freeware program, and of course I'm sure anything that you have or that you're more familiar with, you can run a similar process, or you can use exactly the situation we have established here. So you'll notice I'm running Audacity 2.12. This is the current version. This process will work on future versions. I'm sure, in fact, maybe some of the only minor tricky parts of it that I'm going to show you how to get past really quickly may be easily either exactly the same as I show you or made even easier in future versions. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that you'll want to make sure you have installed, and this is a one-time thing, you don't have to worry about this after you get it set up. We're going to go down to Preferences, and we have all these different things we can select here. We're going to come down to Libraries, and you'll notice that we have these different libraries here, and this second one, the FFMpeg import export library. This is very important. Sometimes you might not have this, and I believe they had to separate it for I forget the specific reasons, but I'll have you look that up if you want to. It'll take the tutorial a little bit past anything that we need to go into because we have a lot to cover as it is. So this library version is accurate. If it wasn't, you would simply click on download, and this is the one part that's going to be different on perhaps a lot of people's machines because some may not have downloaded it or installed it or located it properly in a way that Audacity can find where the library is to work from the information there. So this is what you would do. You would click on download, and as you'll see, it starts up a default browser, and it gives you very clear numbered 1, 2, 3, 4 for Windows, and then we get a fifth step here, and then there's 7 steps down here for Mac OS. So either way, you'll want to follow these very simple, like practically one-line sentences here. And once you do have that and you're installed, you'll see it showing up here. And if it doesn't, you can help it out by pressing locate and go to find the files. But as you'll see, mine is already successfully automatically detected valid FFmpeg libraries. And so good, we don't want to make any changes to that. We're set to go, and once we have this, again, this was a one-time thing setting up with our program, and now we can go to work. I don't want to make any changes because it's all set up ready to go. So we got our FFmpeg library in place in Audacity, and we're ready to work on a file. So I'm going to go through the steps of a typical scenario that someone might want to use. You could pretend that this is a live recording of a band, you know, your own performance, or some lecture you did, or some public speaking thing that you did, or someone you know did. Maybe it's even something from a wedding. Who knows? But an idea is that where the video works fine, the audio recorded might have all kinds of problematic levels. Some things are too quiet, some things are too loud. There was this beautiful part in a ballad that was ruined by the crashing of a champagne bottle or something like that, like right in the end, and you want to take that out without affecting the nice synchronization that the live natural syncing of the singer's mouth movements to the lyrics were in place, etc., or a guitar performance or instrumental performance. But the audio, if it could be taken out of there, performed a surgery on its kind of cleanliness of the audio file and put back in, oh wow, the tremendous difference that would make would be well worth it. In fact, you got to find see if you can go online at some time and find some original. I know I saw a making of some early Star Wars thing, and check out what happens when you take the the audio, doctor it up on its own and bring it back into the thing. It's a dramatic difference. You know what I mean? You go from footsteps that are like that to something done in a Foley room with a separate recording of a sound, and you get these incredible effects. And it's going to be even more so when we're simply working on the live file. So, anyways. Wanted to give you that introduction so that you understand it's probably a good idea to stick out for these steps. It is intricate. We're going to make this as short as possible, but this is quite a process. So you would go to File, you'd go to import, and you'd come down here. Even though we're working with video and stuff like that, we're actually trying to get the audio out of the video and brought into the operating room here in Audacity. So we're going to click audio. And I remember this tutorial I did showing how to program the propeller head's reason subtractor, and it was a really good flow. I was in a good mood. I brought a lot of synthesizer history into it, but the resultant levels and the interaction of the synthesizer sounds and the microphone feed, it was a new setup I was trying to create some improvements with, and I ended up with a few unpredictable results in terms of the final levels and such. So, great example of something that if we can bring that audio out here into Audacity, which it's doing beautifully now using our installed library of the FFMpeg process there in the library. As you can see, it didn't bring up a video, it brought up our sound file. And quickly by glancing at it, we see it reveal everything that I just said just by looking at the waveform. So first thing we see is we know that a good clean Audacity signal, if you look at my cursor here, usually runs from about here to here. That's a pretty reasonably hot signal. We know if it's running all the way from here to here, that's too hot, but this is barely any heat in our signal. And this means that like every time we add a process to it, it's just going to add more air and noise and such like that. So the first thing we want to do, normalize is pretty safe, but just in case, I'm going to press Control D so that we're working with a duplicate. I'm going to mute this. I'm going to bring the volume out just in case. You know why I recommend doing this? My new interface is pretty nice, but I remember I had an old card once that used to be pretty good, and for some reason there would be a little bit of a line bleed sometimes, and I think they've gotten rid of that on new versions. And also too, I'm working with a newer audio card as of about a year or so ago, and it's not the biggest top of the line thing at all, and we're still going to get great results because of how cool this stuff is. Okay, so now we're working on a duplicate. We have this muted here, and this is our original. We're going to go here to our duplicate, and first thing I'm going to run here, so let's get this cleaned up a little bit by running our first effect of normalizing. So we're going to get the signal as normalized across the board as we possibly can. And Audacity is doing a pretty nice job of doing it reasonably quickly, and it's a huge file. It's like a 30-minute tutorial type of thing. Okay, so better, way better. We see some heat. We see a couple, what's that? I'm a little worried about these things. And we go, let's take a listen. So let's take it back here to the beginning. Hello, and welcome to this Propeller Heads Reason tutorial, where we're going. Okay, so we hear there that the normalize now has boosted our signal, and just as a little example, this is how weak it originally was. This is our exact thing with no volume reduction. Our original thing was this weak. Hello, and welcome to this. So that means that folks listening on a smartphone or such, which has an automatic, limitation in the volume, going back to our nice normalized version now, that could be a problem. In fact, it made it hot enough we can actually back that off there a little bit so that we don't blow you away during the tutorial. And let's go here. I like 4. Okay. Come on. Give me 4. There we go. I'm holding down the Shift key so that I can make more minute increments, and that's a cool way of remembering that. Okay, so we have this, and as we look at it, I go, some of these spikes, I don't know. Should we compress it? Yes, let's compress it. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to run an effect that'll take these spikes, bring them down a bit, and it'll take these really minute things that I know are like me playing a synthesizer feed. I just remember how it went. That got a little too quiet. I want these to get a lot closer to a slight reduction of these. So we're going to go into our effects. We have this track selected. We're going to go to compressor. And I noticed I have this set to 8:1, but that's probably going to be a bit high. I think I want to go 4:1. Yeah, let's go 4:1. 4:1, that's pretty good. That looks like, so if this is 100%, these things here that are about a 25% of that in there, This should even up pretty fairly across. Compression settings, I recommend using the default, and if you're going to play with anything, go for playing with the ratio, because setting a compressor just right is actually, it's pretty intricate. You might almost want to have like a consistent engineer's mind to really, I mean, you play with this and it affects this and it affects this. However, the ratio is pretty fair. The rate ratio just depends on how high and your lows are going to be comparative, and it's going to squash them at the, the higher the ratio, the more it's going to squash things and raise the things that are low and such. So 4 to 1 is pretty cool, like a 100 to 25% type concept. Let's take a little bit of a preview listen. Okay, so we could move our preview. Let me show you what just happened there. That's good that came up, so we can show you what happened there. If we go here and we go to our compressor, now we get our preview. We're going to get it from this section of the track. I know some of you may completely know that, but remember, we might have folks that are entirely new to this and might not know that. So I just selected a more common area of the track. It kept our 4 to 1. Let's do a little preview. And I'll tell you this, it's a phenomenal synth, but okay, so even me moving my mouth around, I picked all that up, and it's coming back a bit hot, but that's our overall level that we can easily affect. So sorry if the volume output of that, we have to do a little doctoring in the file till we get this just right. So that came up pretty hot, I guess. But let's go ahead and we like that, but we don't want to run this now because we don't want to have this thing go and do some funny separated, compressed only there, and then we're trying to figure out what happened. Let's take our cursor all the way back to the start. Let's click in this area so that it selects the whole file. And now we're going to actually run our compressor. And it's worth it to do all the steps because this file is huge. So we want to get those set up in a small area first. 4 to 1. Default settings largely, I think. I might have tweaked these a little bit for a previous project. And let's go for it. Okay, so it looks like it's going to take about 30 seconds. I'll give you a brief introduction to the freeware we're going to be using. We're going to be using FFMpeg Express. You don't have to use this. These same concepts will pretty much work in any sort of video program. It's just, the way they go in and out and such, and obviously you're going to have different screens, different companies. But what's going to happen here is we're going to bring in our video that we just extracted the thing from, mute its original track, and fly in our beautifully, surgically, meticulously recrafted audio from Audacity, post Audacity, and you're going to be you'll be really surprised with how much more up to par it brings it. Oh, and look at that. Now we're looking at something as we see our comparative pictures. Not only do we have next to nothing up here in the original, but the peaks and valleys are pretty different. As you can see now, the distance between the peaks and valleys are much more consistent, and I can tell by looking at this is really going to come on strong in your speakers. So let me at first just back the overall volume way off, just for safety there. And let's go back to our beginning. Actually, let's jump out here first so that we can take it to where we want to go with it. All right, okay, so we got that way back. It's sounding hotter, and the levels are far more relative. We can take it to where we want to go with it. Let's take this up to, let's bring it up to, I think I have this set up to where if everything is sounding pretty good in my ears, that means the overall volume is a fair, so that we can take it to where we want to go with it. That, of course, unless, of course, you're maybe a smidge hot, I'm holding down the Shift key so that I can get a little more minute in the adjustment, so that we can take it to where we want. Okay, let's go over here, and of course we can adjust this more later. Hello, and welcome to this Propeller Heads Reason tutorial. Very, very nice. Okay, cool. So now, not really worried about too much cross through at this point. Let's bring this up. I think this was set at 9, so let's bring it to Shift key required again. Okay, so we got 9.1, pretty much about the same. So let's do a comparison. We're gonna mute our nicely compressed and normalized, and we're gonna come in about right here, and we're gonna go. And I'll tell you this, it's Let's choose another spot with a little bit cleaner audio. Okay, and let's go here. Minute changes to some sort of existing patch that you know for sure. Nice. Okay, good. So we have something nice and hot now. And then there's another thing that's happening now. We were hearing it before, but now that we compressed everything, we really hear it. Let's go to our intro. I'm going to come down here. This is muted. So now we're on our compressed and normalized file. I'm going to hit play. Can you hear that ambient background noise? Especially right here. Okay, cool. That's running throughout this, even when I'm speaking. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to remove that. There are so many reasons that you want to remove this in Audacity if you can, but I'm going to hold off on talking about them until we get to some other phases that are going to happen. You'll see why it makes a better use of our time here. But plus the noise reduction effect in Audacity now is absolutely awesome. So we've got our cursor back to the 0, so that means when I go here to the zoom, as I zoom out, it's going to build the zoom from the cursor position. And I can tell by looking now, we don't want to bring this into our noise profile selection. I'll explain what that is in just a second for those of you who don't know. And we don't want to bring this in there either because these are unusual. We notice we don't see anything like this later in the song, and we don't see anything like this. There's even a little nub thing right there. And if we listen at the very beginning, there's the remnants of a mouse click coming up. Hear that just barely at the beginning. There we go. Okay, so the ideal spot for that noise profile is going to be right in between. It sounded like it was about right here. Let's take a listen. Okay, I've selected an area that doesn't have any unusual bumps, clicks, or pops, and instead it just has general ambient background noise that we want to take out of this. I mean, we're going to do this surgery. Might as well go all the way. And so let's go to our effect, and we're going to choose the noise reduction effect. And we have the get noise profile. Noise reduction. Okay, so this is pretty high, but you know what? For this type of thing, it will probably work quite well. Let's get our noise profile right now, and then we're going to play with our settings. So we're not going to hear anything here because it just captured what we defined as, okay, this is noise. Let's get rid of this in the process. And now let's go to noise reduction again so that we can look at our settings, and let's listen to a little preview. Okay, wow. So our preview, believe it or not, that nothingness you heard was that same spot with the noise there earlier. So wonder if it'll let us, whoops, pretty loud there now. Let's go here. Okay, so that's our noise, and then we go here to noise reduction, exact same section of the track, and let's go do a preview. All right, so it's pretty much going to zero that out. Now, one thing I'm thinking about this, though, and you could, as you explore your tracks, if you have a lot of rich harmonic frequencies, you want to be careful with how much noise reduction you add. In fact, I'm going to back this off to about 12. Let's take a listen. Okay, I feel a lot better about that, and I'll tell you why. There's an interplay of a voiceover as well as I'm doing synthesizer programming on this original tutorial. Synthesizers have all kinds of amazing high and mid frequencies in their filters and such like that. So if I bring this in too much, it's going to take the subtleties happening in the synthesizer programming and affect the result. And that's definitely not going to work well for a synthesizer programming tutorial. So 18 is pretty high. 12 is a little bit high, but I feel confident about that. Let's put it this way. On a lot of things, I might run noise reduction at 6, 7, or 8. I'm going to go ahead and run 12 on this, at just on a whim, thinking about it. And before we do, though, let's take a listen. Okay, so it's getting rid of a lot of it. And now, we don't want to just do this part and then surprise us later on. We're going to click here. This selects the whole track. Thus, we are going to go with Effect. And you know why I like to keep clicking Effect instead of using the automatic repeat here? is every once in a while we end up, and I forget which ones, some will not keep the settings you put in there, and you see what I mean? So our noise reduction jumped back up to 12, jumped back up to 18, and remember we wanted it to 12. So we've got 12, we got the whole track selected now, we got our proper noise file, it's still stored. The thing that we selected earlier and chose get noise profile is all stored away there for us, and we're going to come down here and apply our noise reduction. Okay, so we have about 45 seconds to work with, and that gives me more time to come over here to hit Film Effects. We could, in fact, you know what, let's get started on this while that works. I'm going to go to Import. And remember a lot of these keywords, because even if you use another program, a lot of the keywords such as import and tracks and muting and all that will be very similar. So we're going to go to here to import. And I'm going to find the one that I believe needed some leveling was this square wave tutorial. And I'm going to bring this in by opening it. And there you go. Builds a little preview of our file. And I'm going to drag this over to the timeline. Very common video editor keyword. So many use that. And it gives us, in fact, this might do this in your program too. The editor sequence settings differ to this clip you are adding. Would you like to change the editor sequence settings to match the clip? Yes, I liked the way that our recorder picked this up, so I want to build everything around the recording we have, and I don't want some funny mismatch of one of them trying to read things at 15 frames per second and the other one trying to read things at 30 frames per second or whatever. So let's go with, do you want to change the editor's sequence settings to match the clip? Yes, I do. So we're going to do that and then automatically adjust those settings in the background. So I bet our file is done for now. And okay, so now this was set up from an earlier project. So let me get rid of these for confusion for a second. That could be a typical scenario you might run into. So we'll go ahead and keep that. Okay, and then so now we have, this is our locked video and our synchronized audio. This is the actual video and audio prior to our Audacity magic. And I know that this is probably done now. Good. Okay, so remember we just ran the noise reduction across this humongous 30-40 minute tutorial thing. So I want to see what happened to it, and as I look at it, I see it's kind of rounded some edges and stuff. Well, that looks pretty cool. With all of the tracks selected, let's go up here and click Fit Project. And it's going to take a minute or so here. It's going to try to redraw that entire waveform so that it fits in our one. There we go. Okay, all right. So now, as we look at it, we see we've got a hotter signal, and the signal is much more even throughout. And let's cross our fingers and hear what happened to the noise reduction. We're going to go all the way back to the very beginning. So remember, originally when we started this beginning, we had kind of running in the background there. Hello, and welcome to this Propeller Heads Reason tutorial, where we're going to go into a synthesis. Wow, that is clean. You're the details of whether or not I walked that day in my lungs in the breathing, which is awesome. Okay, so we have a lot of cleanliness now. Now I'm kind of concerned about. Let's hear what it did to some of the synthesizer playing. I noticed that I remember that these synth areas were generally quieter than the voiceover. So. But you know what? It sounds a lot like the synth. I mean, it doesn't sound like it went in there and if we put too much noise reduction on there, the synth sound you would have heard almost breaking apart, and it sounds pretty reasonably solid. So that's good too. There we go. And there we go. All right, great. So that's me testing out the sounds in between explaining how to get them through the programming. So We could squash this again. We could squash this, but I like it. I think the interplay of the two, especially later on in the tutorial, I know that I started adding volume and chorusing and such as we were showing how to fatten and widen the synth and everything like that. So it's okay if some of these first ones are pretty thin. I think that was more of the default patch. So we could compress this again if we wanted yet a less difference between these peaks here and these valleys here. But I like it. It sounds infinitely more natural. It's also a nice, cleaner, fuller bodied signal. And man, we got rid of all that noise throughout the entire track. There's one more thing that we can do, and you want to be very careful about this. This is a very typical scenario, so we're going to go ahead and do this next step, and hang with it. I know it's a lengthy tutorial, but man, you learn a lot about how to really do this here. So let's go to the beginning of our track, and again, I want to zoom out from the cursor position at the beginning of the track, and let's take a listen to the nothingness because the noise has been removed. Love it. Little breath there.
Hello.
Okay, so because of the impact of pointless sounds, when this turns into a live performance later, mouse clicks, even the clicking of you'll hear my piano working as I'm doing the demo. Of course, it's on a synthesizer sound in the tutorial. Even the clicking of the hands across the keys, that actually is all totally cool because that's live and it makes sense. But this stuff at the beginning now, uh, now that we've made the signal as the beginning of this junk of previously pressing keys and me doing this zen breathing technique, or whatever, it doesn't make sense now, and it kind of it sets people up for like an unprofessional tutorial when the actual end result of the whole thing live was really cool. So let's get rid of it. But I want to explain something very importantly before we get rid of this. Be very careful. Be very careful. And this is one of the reasons why we always do this duplicate thing. If we always try to remember, you want to immediately start from a duplicate. You do not want to delete or cut a section of this track because guess what will happen then? Instead of being able to easily lay this right back into the original video, our new post Audacity surgery version will end up having the thing mismatched. And man, if you took the original recording of a singer and you just went in there and got out this funky background noise and someone dropping a tray of dishes or whatever, something like that or whatever, if you do this by the removal by the silence process that we're going to show you. So we're going to go up here to edit, and we see that remove special, and we have silence audio. You want to use this, you want to use this, you want to use this, because what's going to happen is it's going to keep the exact track length, and it's just going to put silence where you select it and do this, either this menu pull down here, remove special silence audio, or the one that I've memorized and used for years is Control L, which drops it right in. So let's go in to this area here. Looks like this guy starts up about right there. In fact, I love this pointer that comes back in. Audacity will try to sort of snap a little bit. It'll try to snap right to the build up of that. Okay, so that looks pretty good, and you don't want to take this so far that it cuts in there and it has this, you suddenly appear in a word in some comical fashion. So we do not want to delete here. I must repeat, do not delete or cut. I'm holding down the control button. I'm pressing L. Perfectly wiped out silence. Now we get this nice, clean, crisp scene appearing on the screen, and then he goes, hello. I'm referring to myself in the third person, hilarious. Okay, so so the magic of self-reliance. Okay, so now we've come back to the very beginning there, and let's take a listen to this absolutely pristine startup we have now.
Hello, and welcome to this.
Whoa, okay, so that's quite a difference, folks, from let's bump this so that the volume is somewhere near our, all we're doing is we're touching the volume there. This was our original. Let me mute our doctored version.
Hello, and welcome.
So we got kind of continuous hiss going on there. And remember, we don't even have this matching the volume of our, if we just crank the volume up here to show you how much background noise is in there. Let's go back to this. Whoa, that's junk. Hello. We don't need that. Sorry about the volume there, but I wanted to demonstrate just how much junk we'd taken out of there so we have this really clean signal. And now let's pull back to here and mute this guy, get this out of the way, just prevent any accidental crosstalk or whatever. We might reference that again, but we'll keep this muted and we'll unmute our main here. Now, there's one other thing I want to do. So we have this beautiful clean intro now. I want to go select the whole thing, fit project, and I want to take a look at the ending here. And let me just drop the cursor about right there and rebuild a zoom from that new cursor position. Because, again, everything in the performance is pretty fairly allowable unless it's really over the top. And I remember this was a good performance. That's why I wanted to do all this to it. I thought, it was really in the flow. It was in a great mood, and it came through in the tutorial, and it captured the positive live aspects, and a lot of information came forward. But, the intro and the ending were rough, so we just made the intro just spotless and came out of nowhere now. This is exactly what we want. However, this ending... Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Okay, so got some funny breathing and some funny clicking. I want this to drop right. We don't need that, so I'm holding down Control and I'm pressing L, dropping in some silence. Of course, we have that. I want to make sure it's natural, progressing towards the silence. That's one thing that can happen is if you drop the silence into your actual audio, it can sound. Then you're going to lose some magic because it's going to lose a lot of its natural. Okay, I just want that last little synth note. I even like the way that you can hear the room keys of the actual keyboard interface because it shows that it was live. So. Let's hear what we have here. Yes, let's get this and do it this way. And I'm having a tough time making it get to where I want there. So what you do there, if you ever encounter, you're like, oh, I really want to get this just right there without cutting into it. I'm going to click the zoom and it's going to rebuild from there. And this way it will allow the increment of this to be far more gradual. So, okay, so we hear that that's all junk. That's all junk. In fact, just to be on the safe side, and I know that this seems nitpicky here, but I'm doing this in case, let's pretend this was like from some perfect wedding performance or something like that, and you had this ballad singer, and they're at the finish, and that's why, and then right at that part, right before he comes and says "I love you," someone drops this tray of champagne glasses. And you get this recording of the champagne, okay, and then he comes. I love you. Okay, so pretend like all of this is that champagne drop, and we're getting really minute here for dressing up some tutorial volume, but pretend it's something like that. So we got this big drop of the champagne glasses tray here, whatever, and let's take a listen to what we selected and make sure we haven't cut into anything too much or run into this. Okay, so it's just junk bumping the mic or whatever, which in the performance totally cool. It's just as fun. I'm moving around, playing the synth and everything like that. But we don't want to begin or end like that. So I'm holding down the Control key, and I'm going to hit the L. Or in this, so just so you can see it visually, I'm going to go up here to our Remove Special, and you see its shortcut is Control L. But bam, and now we got nothing. We know for sure if we play it, we're going to hear nothing. And now let's hear how much more refined our outro sounds. Okay. Please like and subscribe. Nice. Okay, so that's a pretty sweet outro. We brought a little bit of almost like studio editing factor to our video without disrupting the live performance. Most importantly, we did not we did not cut delete a section, especially in the middle. Oh God, you do not want to delete like even a tiny chunk in the middle, because that would mean you would have you would have some bizarre thing like as you can see, my cursor right now is over the green arrow. Yes, and as we look over in the file menu, you'd have stuff like that happening going if you change the speed of the two. But fortunately, all the procedure we used are going to keep the file duration, the length of the audio file exactly matched up with the video, and we're going to bring in a fit project there so we take a look at the whole thing. And just a quick little preview from the very start. We're hearing nothing. It's going to be beautiful with a nice clean screen. And
Hello, and welcome to this Propeller Heads Reason tutorial, where we're going to go into a synthesizer programming lab centered around usage of the square wave. However, what I want to do is I want to zero this out, and this is, remember, a good.
okay, cool. So enough of that. And I hear even the noise reduction. There were some. My studio is somewhat near a street area, and I know that sometimes some cars and some traffic louder than others. It even helped reduce. I hear it a little, one or two passing by there, and it helped with that a little bit. I like where our volume is, and that's going to come out in the output too. And I happen to know that just where my system is, that something that's reasonably comfortable in the ears is about where I want it. And I know even my voiceover right now, like what we hear in this area, should be
Everything out, and we
it
of
should
course have
be
our
about the same
our
volume.
standard.
So maybe we could ease back just a little bit there. Let's go to negative. I still want the signal hot, so there we go. Okay, so um, that's good. I'm sure that's good. Let's just randomly pick a spot.
K for the type of effect
It's a little hot, but that's good. I'd rather back off the volume than try to use any video editor's additional gain settings, because sometimes I'm certainly not saying this about any particular program, but every time I've used, let's put it this way, the audio effects usually in most video editors, unless they are extremely top of the line, they usually, audio is a second thought because the video editor is the video editor. So the more you can perfect this, sound designer style. Remember those Foley guys? They record the recording of that soundtrack. That's done on an entirely different soundstage and everything. So let's bring this into our Audacity soundstage like we did, cleaned it up, went to surgery on it, and now we're going to select this. We're not interested in this. That was just our backup of the original. We're going to come down here and we are going to do export, not audio, but export selected audio, because we want this. So we have our square wave tutorial, and I ran a practice version there earlier, so we're going to disregard that title for a second. I want to make sure we have this perfect for you. Post, in fact, Audacified square wave tutorial, just so I know what's going on here. Let me do this. Name your thing whatever you want. I want to know this is the post practice one too. So we got this, and now it's going to save our version. We don't need any of this. It's this is not like a track that's going to be playing on an MP3 device or anything like that. This is for our, and this is high quality wave too. So this would be a reasonably big file actually. So there you go. Nice little quick export of that. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to keep this open because I want to show you. I'm going to accidentally kind of force my video editor to do something that it might normally do if we had a bunch of effects set up and everything in it. And this is not the program. HitFilm Express is absolutely awesome. I just have a machine it's a very good machine, but it's not something that I bought yesterday. I've had it for a few years and all that, and it's not some mega giant video editing system. And I want to show you a reason why we want to get that audio perfected here in the beautifully compact, non-bloated Audacity audio editing. So they're letting you know all we do is audio. We don't. Okay, so the video. Now we're over here, and remember this is our original. See this little lock thing. This is our original locked synced track. Now we're going to import what we just exported, and let's see, this was that big second one, put the post practice one. This is what we just exported here. This is our cleaned up, beautified soundtrack. Then we're going to come in here, and I found from experience, maybe your program is different, but this basically, this program doesn't like me playing with this file until it has completely rendered. What it's doing right now is it's generating a preview of the waveform. So we're gonna let it work on that, generating the review of that. Okay, good. There we go. And now we have something that this is so great. We don't want to play around in here. This is a live recording of whatever it is. In this case, it was a live tutorial. It could be a lecture. It could be a wedding. It could be a performance. A young person performance at some recital or something like that, or whatever. And we don't want to play any games. We ain't looking to do no auto tune or anything like that. We just want to. Of course, you actually could do that in Audacity, depending on what it is. We're going to take this, and I'm going to drag it from my media list there, and you'll see that this really cool program wants to snap that thing right where it's supposed to be. And you look, the endings are perfectly aligned. And this is all the same. So, for a second though, I want you to hear how dramatic of a difference this is. So, this thing that we just dropped, I'm going to mute it. And you see it kind of ghost out there, ghost white to gray there, ghost gray. And this is just our original. This is our original video and the undoctored audio. Let's go to the beginning here and take a listen. Awesome. Okay. Now, this is why I kept Audacity open in the background, is because I wanted enough of a taxing on the processor to show you something that actually happens in a lot of video programs unless you have a killer machine and the absolute, and a great, great, like I think this program is great. But again, I'm not geared for like, big giant film editing, and I have this file open in another program, etc., etc. But that could actually happen entirely in here. Like I could have these effects and controls happening, and I could have multiple layers going, and we can't even get a realistic overview of our audio because the machine it's trying to struggle, and it's trying to come up with the actual track, but the processor and the resources are being too taxed. And of course, if you have a $20 billion computer, you can disregard what I'm saying there, but I bet that's not most of us, especially if we're using Audacity, for something. I could be wrong. But anyways, I just want to make sure that everybody's covered there. So, okay, now that we've heard that, and we see that, okay, that's what I was talking about, is that we want to do as much of that in this beautifully clean. And look what happens over here. Over here, we're just do things like that. We get an exact, this is what you see is what you get and what you hear. Very cool. So I don't need to keep this. We got a beautiful export of it. I still have my original. I'm just, normally I would save if it's a big project, but don't need to mess with that right now. Just gets in the way of showing you how to do this. Okay, so we're over here and we have our project ready to go. And now what we are going to do is we are going to let you hear the originals here, and then we are going to compare them. So this is the original. Let's check out what's up with this.
Hello, and welcome to this Propeller Heads Reason tutorial where we're going.
Not horrible, but now, after our surgery, volume might be a little bit hot. I'm just a little warning. I don't think it's gonna be crazy hot. And we can easily, like, pulling down volume from programming like this. That's totally fine. But we don't have to add any effects. We don't have to play around and go, are those pops and clicks the processor, or is it? We know we have this perfect file. So we just heard that version. Now, the pro version post Audacity.
Hello, and welcome to this Propeller Heads Reason tutorial where we're going to go into a synthesizer programming lab centered around usage of the square wave.
All right, okay, so, infinitely better. And in my original recording here, there were some things I wanted to improve, but if you had like an extreme situation, I mean, you could like work miracles with something like this. And so now we're just going to keep this attached or whatever. It doesn't matter because this is muted. And what you would do in this particular program, and again, this is not a tutorial for FFMpeg Express. This is a general, what you see now, the Harley going by there. That what if that happened like during a recording? You know what I mean? And you wanted to take it out and such like that. You could take it into Audacity. So there we go. I got a little help from the distance on that. Okay, so we're going to go up here to export. And again, very common keyword. This particular program has all these different things you can export, APIs, something Mp4. This is usually what I would do. This would then export what you have in the editor, the timeline, and the editor in the content area. That's meaning those are those little tracks we just pulled down into there. And it exports to a file. And once it's there, we have a completed file that we can now upload or move around that has had tremendous improvement in terms of its conjoined, and that's a scope for the site that they offer. And anyways, a page for their software and such. So anyways, that is and since it's free, I'm pretty sure totally safe using the screenshots and everything like this. In fact, I'll give them a little shout out here, is that this particular program, all they want for this FFMpeg Express is that when you download, you give them a shout out on Twitter or Facebook, and this little box comes up and it says, "Let people know that you're using FFMpeg Express." So I guess I'm doing that in the ultimate way here. There'll be a bunch of people who see this. Very good promotion for their material as well. I have nothing but positive things to say about it. In fact, again, my machine is more rigged for audio. I've tried several small video editors. Let's put it this way: this one works really well. That's my nice way of saying some things about some of the other ones. Okay, so this works really well on my machine, and so we have the original OK version is Audiosed, and we have our Audacity version repaired here, and that, my friends, is that. So I think you remember all the steps there. Newest version of Audacity, FFMpeg Library in your library section under preferences, and you are ready to perfect and bring your audio of your recordings in your videos up to par. Be responsible with this new power, because you are unlimited. Be unlimited, stay unlimited. We will see you in the next unlimited show, tutorial thing, whatever it's going to be. You know what I mean. Okay, so we'll see you next time, y'all.